Good evening and welcome to the January 7th, 2019 meeting of the MSAD 51 Board of Directors. I am your host, Mike Brown, coming to you live from the Greeley High School Library. We have an exciting and fun-filled agenda in front of us this evening and enough members to move this meeting forward. So without any further ado, first item would be entertaining a motion as it relates to the minutes from our December 17th, 2018 school board meeting.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
We have a move and a second. Is there any discussion as it relates to these minutes? Hearing none, we shall vote. All in favor? Looks pretty good. The next item on our agenda is recognition. I don't have any currently in front of me, and so we will dispense with that portion of this evening's agenda and move right into presentations. The first presentation is the IB program update from Vanessa Gribben. Welcome, Ms. Gribben.
All right. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to give you all an update on the status of the IB program here at Greeley High School. I'll talk about the program, some history, where we are, some of the data, and then Chris will jump in and talk about where we're going. Okay, just very quickly, the IBDP is the International Baccalaureate Diploma Program. It's an academically challenging and balanced program of education with final exams that prepare students ages 16 to 19, which means juniors and seniors in the high school in the U.S. And it prepares them for success in university and beyond. It's designed not just to address content knowledge, but also intellectual, social, emotional, physical well-being of students. It aspires to help schools develop well-rounded students. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things about the program in terms of it's more than just content knowledge. It also includes some character issues, helping kids make ethical decisions and those sorts of things. So a few things about what makes the IB diploma program unique. So there's something called the concurrency of learning, and this framework, circle, is the one that the IB diploma program uses to show how all of their components are interrelated. So in this very center, you see the silhouette of the students, and there's a little guy, sort of preteen, and then a high school student silhouette, because they actually have 4 programs. One is the primary years program, which is sort of elementary age. One is the middle years program that goes from middle school up to 10th grade. And then there are 2 11th and 12th grade programs. The one that we offer is the diploma program and more academic in nature. And then there is a career certificate program, which is more application oriented, and we do not offer that here. So inside there, we have the combination of approaches to teaching and learning that are at the core of everything that we do. The next circle out shows theory of knowledge, extended essay, creativity, activity, and service. So those 3 components are called the core. And the neat thing about that is any diploma candidate student anywhere in the world attempting to earn the IB diploma does those 3 components exactly the same. So they may be in a different language, French, German, Spanish, English, but the requirements of those components are the same for everybody around the world. Theory of knowledge is a course, and it's sort of kind of a philosophy-ish course, and it really gets to the matter of how do you know what you know, different ways of knowing things. The extended essay is a 4,000 word fully independent research paper, and that is a really good preparation for college bound students in terms of being able to write research questions, do research, write those papers. The creativity, activity, and service component is the one that takes the kids out of the classroom, and it involves a lot of the things that the kids are already doing. It might involve sports, might involve bigs and littles, might involve playing at the in the youth orchestra in Portland, working in a soup kitchen. It's not just community services. It's really about getting out of the classroom and looking at different types of things that you might do that have to do with being creative and being active. So there is an emphasis on that piece, on that well-roundedness piece, to make sure that the students are not just sitting in a classroom or sitting with a book, but really getting out into the community in lots of different ways. The next ring are what I would call the content areas, and there's 6 of them, similar to what you would assume. We have studies in language and literature is like your English, your primary language class. Your language acquisition is your second language, which is required for anybody doing the diploma program. That is a mandatory requirement. The individuals and societies is the kind of social studies component. Then you have your experimental sciences, you have mathematics, and then the arts, which could be visual arts, performing arts, could be a second course in some of the other areas as an elective. You might take a second social studies course and maybe study both history and geography, for example, to fill out your program. When the students sign up for their diploma programs, we do have some options here in terms of individualizing. So students have an option for languages. They have some option in the sciences and in the social studies areas. And the way the program is designed is they take 3 courses at what's called higher level and 3 courses at what's called standard level. And the thing that's important to understand about that is that they're all rigorous college level courses. It's not standard level, is not like you might think CP level or something, or high school level. They're all high level rigorous courses. It's just the higher level courses have more time and more content, and maybe will go into more depth or breadth depending on the specific course. And the standard level just has less of that. So a good way to think about it is your major and minor in college. Your major would be like your HL courses, and your minor would be like your SL courses. So they're all college level, but you just do a little bit less in some of the courses. And again, the reason for that is to really strive for that balance in the student, and not just focusing on content knowledge, but really looking at some of the other skills and aspects of their learning that we want them to consider as they're going through. Okay, another way that makes the program unique is there are multiple ways of demonstrating knowledge and understanding, and there are multiple assessment opportunities. And I'm talking here about the formal IB assessments that are part of what it takes to earn their IB scores. So in all of these courses, the students are sitting in Greeley High School classes for 2 years and doing assignments and essays and tests and so forth, just like in any other class. And those are the pieces that contribute to their Greeley High School grade. In addition to that, there are specific formal requirements that need to be done for the IB portion. Some of those overlap and count as Greeley grades and IB grades, but some don't. So there are multiple types of assessments. So some are called EA or external assessments, and some are called IAs or internal assessments. The internal assessments are things that are done here. Teachers grade them according to a set rubric, and then we report the scores that we came up with, and a sampling is done, and a sample is sent along to IB examiners for moderation, and then the teacher's scores are adjusted appropriately if necessary. So the assignments are set by IB, we administer them, we do them here, we correct them, and then send the samples along. Those kinds of assessments include things like oral presentations, oral commentaries, projects, compositions, performances in the art, making sculptures or actually making art, some of the field work, the lab work. So there's all different types of assessments that are used depending on the course involved. The other things are called external assessments, and those are things that we may administer here or we may set the assignment here, but they're 100% sent to IB for grading, 100% by the IB examiners. So those are things like the exams in May. So of course, those we administer those in May, they take them, we pack them up, we ship them off, and somebody in the IB world examines them and scores them. But there are also a few things that we do internally, like the extended essay actually counts as an external assessment. They have a TOK paper that they write that's really an external assessment. They have some written tasks that they do in their language courses that count as external. So without going into way too much detail, the real message is that there are lots of opportunities and lots of ways that students demonstrate how and what they've learned, which again, I think is one of the really powerful things about the program. It's not just sitting and doing a pen and pencil and paper test, but they're really looking at lots of different ways to articulate what they know. Of course, we have the global perspective. It's an international program. This mission statement, I love this mission statement, especially the part at the end that I think is very powerful, where it says, the programs encourage students across the world to become active, compassionate, and lifelong learners who understand that other people with their differences can also be right. And I think in today's world, that's a very powerful piece that our kids are exposed to. And one of the examples that I love to talk about is what they do in their history class when they're looking at the Cuban Missile Crisis. That's one of their big themes in their History of the Americas, which is not a U.S. history course, it's an Americas history course. But they look at that point in time from all perspectives, not just from the U.S. perspective. They look at it from this perspective of the Cubans, of the Russians, and also of the Americans, and it really starts to help them open their minds to different ways of thinking and how you might look at things from multiple perspectives. And so I think that's another really powerful piece of how the program is put together, that global perspective, not just Spanish Culture Day, but really digging into some of the issues around having that open mind. A couple of the other things are, and I've touched on this maybe a little bit, but the written component, which I think is really important in terms of being ready for college. And then the other I think, very unique thing is the emphasis on reflection. And if you looked at some of the syllabi or some of the course descriptions, some of the assignments that are set, you'll see that constant weave of reflection. And it's not just knowing something, it's thinking about how did I learn it? In what way did I learn it? Is there a bias associated with how I learned that? Is this an emotional response? Is this an academic response? And to really start thinking about not just the content, but the process. And to me, that's one of the big things that helps them with that transfer and application of knowledge, is to be able to really reflect on how they're learning, what they're learning, so that they can then make those jumps to other things. There's something called the IB Learner Profile, and this applies to all of the programs. And again, it really, I think, speaks to the program focusing on just more than just the content knowledge, which I don't want to undervalue, because the content is rigorous and prepares them for college and is college level work, but it's just more than that. And so that balanced, reflective, open-minded thinkers, those types of attributes that we try to develop in the students through this program, I think is what makes it different than some of the other higher level coursework that they might do. And again, it's really trying to help create better citizens of the world in many ways, not just by having the content knowledge, but by having some of these other skills and attributes. So another thing about the uniqueness of the diploma program here, and it's one of the things that we've worked really hard on, and I'm probably the most proud, but pretty proud of the efforts that we've made in the accessibility of the program. So these courses are not just for full honors track pathway students. There are lots of pathways for students to do the full diploma. Half of our current senior cohort, so we have 12 senior full diploma students, half of them came from a mix of CP and honors classes. Some had majority of CP classes, some had a mix in their freshman and sophomore years. So it really helps the students develop the skills that they need to access those higher level concepts and ideas. And because you have that 2-year continuum, you have the time to do that. So there are students who are able to access this learning and these some of these concepts and higher level skills in a way that they may not be able to in a more traditional year-long course. And again, we have courses in place for grade level math science students, which is one of the pathway considerations. And we every year have students who come from multiple avenues into these courses and are very successful. The other, another thing to talk about is, again, it's the emphasis on the skills and the readiness as opposed to college credit. So there's tons of research out there. I picked a couple that I thought might be pertinent for this conversation. But the IBO has tons of research. They do tons of research all the time, so there's a lot available on their website. But specifically, for example, with the David Conley research with EPIC, they categorize students as full IB students or IB diploma students and then not IB diploma students. And what's interesting in their research is they looked at students who were taking 4 or more IB courses as having a full IB load. So even though they might not have every single component that they would need to actually earn the IB diploma, there's some evidence that taking those 4 or more IB courses gives almost the same benefit, or a pretty big chunk of the benefit, as doing the full program. There are some things that you get from the full program that sort of take you to that like next higher level, but there are lots of benefits of doing multiple IB courses, and a lot of that has to do with that interconnectedness, and things like, what we've seen is a student who might do English, history, their language, and TOK maybe, get a lot of benefit out of doing those. They have multiple assessment types. They have lots of that global experience. And they're getting a lot of benefit from doing those multiple IB courses. So it's interesting that that's how they split their students in that study. But one of the important things here is the end of that first bullet, is managing their time and demanding workloads. What I have found anecdotally with feedback from students who have done the full program is that not only are they successful in college, but they're doing lots of other things as well. So I had a student who was part of student government as a freshman. I had a student who was in a local band and played in a local, club 2 or 3 nights a week, and was able to not only do that, but do well in her studies as well. I had a student who was a swimmer who was able to continue to swim at the college level and maintain her grades and her courses appropriately. I've had students who have done a semester abroad without adding more time on the end of their experience in college and changing their graduation date. And so I think that's another huge benefit to that. Managing the workloads and expectation is not just the school workload, but helping those kids get out into the community and do some of the other really fun things that are part of the college experience. And that kind of links down to the last 2 bullets in this slide, is that's shown with research, that the students really carry that civic mindedness, that global perspective, that community service aspect of what they've done in high school. They carry that with them, not just through college, but beyond as well. So yeah, there's tons of research that we could look at that basically says a lot of the same thing. I left out some of the international research, but there's lots from Australia and Singapore and other places like that as well. So what have we done here? So we started teaching in fall of 2009. Our first cohort graduated in 2011. So this is our 10th year that we're teaching. We have, of our current teaching staff, about 62% of them have attended some sort of an IB training or workshop. That doesn't count teachers who have retired or left. And that's worth noting, because one of the really big benefits that we've seen from a professional staff standpoint is that most of us teachers don't just teach IB courses. We teach multiple. We'll have I teach math. So I might have an IB math, I might have an algebra 1, I might have an advanced math. So I have lots of different courses that I teach, not just the IB courses, but I take a lot of what I've learned in those IB courses and really transfer that, and it shapes my instruction and assessments in a really big way. And so that does kind of filter down through your whole school in terms of how teachers are looking at things with their instruction methods and their assessment methods, and it really does give a benefit across the building, even if the teacher is not currently teaching an IB course. Right now, with the courses that we offer, we have 23 active IB teachers, and that is a combination. Some teachers teach both years, some or loop through. Some teachers teach 1 year or the other. Some trade off with different teachers in the department so that one might start one group and another start the next group. So that just really depends on the department and the courses. We've had, since we've started, we've had 8 cohorts go completely through the program and graduate. So starting from 2011 to 2018. So here's some data. I'm a math teacher. So in the 8 years, we've had 458 students take at least one class. So that's an average of 57 per year. However, we're on the rise. Since 2014, the average is 65. This year, we have 121 of our 190, 88 or 90-ish seniors are taking at least one IB course. So it's fantastic. The percent of students has risen continually from 24% originally. Now, the current seniors, there's 62% of those students are taking at least one IB course. Our performance has been fantastic. Our pass rate for students earning the diploma over the whole time is 94%, and the world pass rate is around 78%. So most years we have 100% pass rate. We've had a couple of years where 1 or 2 students have not earned that diploma. We average about 170 individual courses per year. Again, worth noting, this is our biggest year ever, and we have students signed up for 296 courses this year. Average number of students, number of courses per student is 3, which again gets to that goal of having that sort of real full IB experience, even if the student is not, it's not appropriate for that student to attempt the full diploma, really getting that benefit of multiple IB courses. We really look at that to try to see if students are accessing just more than one IB course. The diploma candidates take 7, which are their 6 content areas plus their TOK. In terms of scoring, again, not to get into the details, but the IB tracks their average scores for just their diploma candidates. So the minimum score to earn the diploma is 24, our average is 33, world average is just under 30. And we generally score above the world average in our individual courses. So I get data every year that shows the world average for the course and our average for the course, and we typically are at or above average for most of our courses. Once in a while, we slip a little bit with the math and science because those are the harder courses, but generally we're at or above the world's average. Okay, so what's next for me is this very exciting situation of our largest ever graduating cohort. So I think our largest cohort before that was 84 students. Now we have 121. So we're 50% more than where we've been in the past. So what that means in a nutshell is 126 early submissions, 284 IAA grades, 284 predicted grades, 100 samples. 18 art submissions, somewhere around 550 to 600 actual exams to be administered in the month of May. And then the CAS completion is something that we do a little bit differently, and those are all done by the beginning of June. So we've got a big spring coming up in terms of activity with that class of 2019. And I'm going to let Chris talk about some of the even more future things.
I have the distinct pleasure of just jumping on the last 3 bullets of the last slide of Vanessa's presentation, so she deserves all the credit for putting together tonight's presentation. But we did collaborate and talk, and have been in the months leading up to now, about where we envision IB going from here, and the last 3 bullets on the slide speak to that. I do think, as you saw in the growth in the numbers, I think in a lot of ways we are already transitioning from a school that just offers IB courses to what we might consider an IB world school, one where IB is really central to the mission and vision of the school itself. Given that we're now teaching these courses to at least 60% of our graduating class, and will be with next year's graduating class too, given our current projections, we should be proud of that growth, and we thank Vanessa largely for that. We are in the process of a self-study. Every 5 years, the IB asks its member schools to conduct a self-study, and our second 5-year review cycle is due in December of 2020. And through that self-study, we're identifying a number of protocols and practices that might help us achieve that goal identified in the first bullet point. Just as one example, quickly, something that Vanessa and I have worked on is policy around academic honesty, for example. The IB provides some specific resources to help us think about academic honesty in all contexts, and we have used that to inform our own academic honesty policy within the school. We haven't made that change yet, but are in the process of reviewing our current policy and using the IB's resources to guide our work there. And I think another key element of our work going forward is continuing to look at the pathways that our 6th through 10th graders take, starting in the middle school and coming to us, and ensuring that those pathways allow for maximum access to IB coursework once students become juniors at the high school. That's something that we've been looking at for years. I'm obviously new in this role and only have begun to look at and understand that, but I think that work is essential to ensuring our students are prepared, for IB when they get to us through the end of their sophomore year. So, as Vanessa outlined, we're very proud and pleased to have this program as a part of our curriculum. We envision continued growth here at Greeley High School, and it's exciting. So, I think Vanessa's next slide was really just an opportunity to ask questions.
Right. So, but thank you very much for letting us present this and give you the status of where we are right now. So, does anybody have questions?
I do. How many districts in Maine actually have IB programs?
We're one of 3 public schools in
Okay.
Maine.
Are there other schools that are looking at bringing it in, or is that something that you know?
There are. I know I've been contacted. I get contacted once in a while from either guidance people or assistant principals, and I've been contacted most recently by a couple other local Southern Maine schools. So I think people look at it in terms of some schools across the nation, at least, have used IB as a framework for really increasing performance in their students.
What would you attribute the growth over, having such a big group this year, what you think encouraged students to join?
Well, there's a couple of things. It's a large class.
Okay.
So just number-wise, there's more students. It's a very, some of the graduating classes have sort of distinct personalities, and this one happens to be a very high performing class. So a lot of the students, just in general, have, since they've entered high school, have taken a lot of the higher level, either honors courses, et cetera. So it's a very high powered group, so to speak. But I think there's two pieces. A few years ago, we started going to the middle school to talk to the 7th and 8th graders and their parents about the IB program here, and kind of similar to this, and also what are the things that students need to do in order to be able to access and be in those pathways to be able to access the courses. And I think talking about it sooner makes it makes those parents and students aware of the opportunity. So some people don't even know about the opportunity, and by the time they figure it out, it might be too late for them to access the full program. So I think that was another big thing that we started doing. And then probably the strongest piece is the word of mouth from the kids who graduate and go on to school and talk about how amazing their college experience was and how, quote unquote, easy it was. I was just talking to Joan about one of her daughters, and in just that word of mouth of how beneficial, especially not just the program, but some of the courses. I mean, I hear over and over about the history course, the research paper, and TOK. Those are like the big three. And that's probably the strongest piece in terms of kids taking the chance to take those courses.
Awesome. Thank you.
I would just add one thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would just add, I think we've done a good job at looking for courses that would allow for greater access to the program. So I think we've added courses over the 10 years that the program has been here that might be more accessible to students than, our total number of courses we've offered has grown, but also the specific courses we've offered, I think, has done a good job at providing greater access. For example, the sort of IB Sports Exercise and Health Science course that we didn't originally have, but added probably 4 years ago at this point.
Right. Yep.
Just one example of that.
Yep. The second math course that I teach, which is for the grade level pathway math students, was another key component to having bigger access, fuller access to the diploma program.
Awesome. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you both for coming in. It helps answer the question that comes up at Food Stop of how is AP and IB different, and this was really enlightening, and we appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Next up on our agenda is the District Literacy Review Update presented by Sally Laughlin.
Thank you. And I echo Vanessa's appreciation for taking the time from the board to hear a little bit about this. It's certainly something we think is significant, and the school and district support for this literacy review process is just greatly appreciated. So just to put some context around it, the district had recognized that our current programming for literacy is not necessarily 100% aligned with the Common Core state standards that the students are now being tested with. And it was an open question how we should proceed, because there's a lot of strengths in the Teachers College reading and writing workshop models, and we certainly think the methodology and instruction teachers are learning to be those teachers that teach kids how to make an inference or how to explain clearly in their writing. We certainly didn't want to signal that that wasn't valued. However, we believe that there are some gaps in alignment in what our program is not addressing. And so as a curriculum director, it is just a huge gift to be given the time and resources to do this in a thoughtful and organizational approach. It was in our strategic plan that we would do this. I think it was written, called a literacy audit. And how it has really been shaped was we have staff members primarily from K-8, although many thanks to Joan Guile, who's our high school representative. So we have 19 individuals who've been meeting monthly with an expert. Dr. Eileen Harris works part-time in another district, and she's a known literacy expert that was referred to us. So Eileen has really been taking this group of staff members, and we're talking about, I have not had a meeting where all 3 of our K-8 administrators are not present. And when you think, and we're meeting once a month on a Friday, and those administrators are there, and they are leading this with their staff. And they have brought classroom teachers, special education teachers, a variety of special ed resource rooms, speech and language. We have a really, it just gives me goosebumps talking about, we have this incredibly rich, diverse group of people that have been coming together and looking at what are, right now we're taking all the Common Core standards. We started this fall with the foundational skills, and we have been making sure that every adult knows the research and exactly what these skills are. And then our next step, starting in January, is going to hold up the analysis tools and say, to what degree is our curriculum, the work that we do, and the practices that we do aligned with what we know these foundational skills are asking. And we are, I think we're on fire. I was saying at our last meeting that I could leave the district and this group would carry on. We are heavily invested in this. We know it's the right thing to be doing. And I think we feel very powerful that we understand what it is that we want to have for our students. And I think we have some clear direction around these foundational skills being where we had a suspicion that we had an alignment gap. And we are actively getting ahead of ourselves and noting programming options and resources and professional development and everything. But what this group will do this year is we'll continue to meet monthly. We'll analyze each of the Common Core standards in addition to the foundational skills. And by the end of the year, we will have our analysis completed about where are our strengths and where are our gaps. And we will be recommending next steps for professional development and curriculum resources. We are focusing primarily on reading right now. However, we do believe that we are optimistic that we will get further than the act of reading this year, because obviously writing and speaking and listening are those other literacy skills included in this area. But I really appreciate the chance to check in January and let you know that that I think you've been handed a document with individuals listed on it. Please feel free to speak to any one of those individuals about their perceptions or their experience, because I am confident that we are working as a group, and we are on fire. We are excited about the research we're bringing to the table, and we feel that what we'll be coming up with is so thoughtful, because it will be a coordinated district view of how each grade should contribute to these expectations. And the opportunity to do that type of thinking doesn't come along very often. So we've started our literacy process. We have a wonderful representative group. We think we're on pace for where we need to be. Our next meeting is Friday, by the way. Should anyone be curious, we're at the other thing just to note and say for appreciation is that the Cumberland's Fire Station Community Room has been a choice for many of our meetings. It is a fabulous place to be, and the folks there have been more than welcoming and supportive, but we're kind of a little club now. And we're excited about what we're doing, and happy to take any questions. Just appreciated the chance to acknowledge for my powerful group that they're on their way.
Sally, what time does the group meet on Friday?
We start at 8:15, and usually we are done working as a whole group by around 1 o'clock. However, another kind of point of pride was folks chose to stay and continue working after the meeting was done, the last time we had a meeting. Yeah.
It's a really strong team.
It's a great, yeah, and you can see the individuals. every single person feels the trust of the group and is committed to the work.
Thank you. Any other questions? Well, thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Great.
We
Thanks.
look forward to hearing more in the future.
I look forward to bringing it to you. Thanks.
Moving right along, we will turn the forum over to Mr. Porter for the superintendent's report.
Yes, tonight I'm going to be brief. So the Arts Center is now open, the Greeley Arts Center. We have moved this weekend the band and chorus programs at the high school over to the Arts Center. So they started their first day in that space, that new space today. Weather pending, we have our first event this week, Poetry Out Loud. I believe Ms. Skyle actually coordinates that for the high school. So that will be probably our first event really in the Arts Center, where we'll be using the auditorium for that particular program. So we're really excited about that and getting that space used. And then in a few weeks on January 28th, which is a Monday evening from 6 to 9 o'clock, we will have a grand opening, and the public is welcome. We'd like to have anybody who'd like to come. We'll have an itinerary that we'll be sending out shortly about certain events. We'll have a ribbon cutting event as well that will be attended by different folks, and we'll even have a big pair of scissors, but we'll have a lot of student performances throughout the evening, and I think it'll be just kind of a fun way for people to come in. We'll have tours that are self-guided, but we'll have students available as well who will be helping with the tours. So I'd like to acknowledge Margot Harrington, who has been on that committee for helping, and who am I forgetting? Anybody else? I always forget who's on what committee, but Margot's been on that committee, and we have our first Art Center Advisory Committee, which is meeting this week, and I forget what day it is, but tomorrow, weather holding. We'll have our first advisory committee meeting for the Art Center, so that's exciting. Today, we actually welcomed all 800 of our students in grades 4 through 8, packed into the middle school gym, and welcomed our 10 students from Japan who will be with us over the next week or so, and 4 staff members from Amioki Junior High School in Amioki Town, Amori Prefecture in Japan. And this afternoon, I also met with the principal of the junior high school there, and a member of the school board, and a couple of teachers as well who came over. But it was really exciting to see all the students. And this is an annual event this time of year at the middle school. And the students did an absolutely amazing job from Japan performing for our students. Just amazing. In fact, we posted a video on social media. It's on Facebook and Twitter, showing our students performing for the students from Japan as well. And we'll have some more photos up as we get them. This is an exchange that's been going on for 27 years with Greeley Middle School and MSAD 51, and I'm very proud of it. And we've reaffirmed this really important exchange and partnership with our friends from Japan, and it's we see a lot of the same staff members, and there's always a couple of kids that come for a second year from Japan as well. And then we have a group of students from our middle school that travel over to Japan during the summer. And we've been doing that for 27 years, so it's really exciting. Also overseas, we can see, as Vanessa was talking about, the global interconnectedness of IB, and incredible support that that we have here for looking at global perspectives in our high school. We have other connections with the world. Many of our students sent, just before the holidays, some greetings over to Qatar. And we got a message back from Master Sergeant Sean Dutton, who actually is from Maine, and he is serving in the U.S. Armed Forces 379th Expeditionary Logistics Readiness Squad in Qatar. on the airbase there, and he sent us a message back saying that he had gone to the dining hall one day on Christmas Eve and noticed that there were messages, and he went over and read them and couldn't believe they were from Maine and from Greeley, and he actually knew where that was. And so he just said that it was great to see that. It made him homesick for Maine, and if you're interested in any of those photos, they are also on social media, and they'll be on my blog later this week. Last week, the district sent out the first of 7 very short video clips on the district budget. And last week's video has to do with what is an SAD, and that's also going to be running in my blog later this week. It's on Facebook and on Twitter. So if you're interested in learning about the budget, but you really don't want to watch a video for more than 3 minutes, this video series is for you. 3 minutes, hopefully painless, but it does give you a bunch of information about the budget. And every 2 weeks, there'll be another 3-minute video posted. We'll have it in our weekly newsletter that goes out from the SAD. We'll have it on Twitter, Facebook, and it will be in my blog. So we'll have it in several different places, and it also can be found on YouTube. So if you like to search YouTube, you'll find it up there. Safety committee, we have a safety committee. We have our police department and fire department, EMS is represented, our school board and administrators, and we have teachers and on this particular committee. And at our last meeting before the holidays, we met with the state representative from Homeland Security, who represents the U.S. Department of Homeland Security for the state, Bill DeLong, and we met with Bill and talked to him about a threat and vulnerability assessment. And Bill will be personally helping us conduct that assessment free of charge, thanks to our U.S. Department of Homeland Security. So over the next few months, we'll be conducting a self-assessment through the Safety Committee, and then we will also be using Bill's support, Bill DeLong's support, to help us audit all of our facilities and safety practices in the district in accordance with all the most recent and current Homeland Security practices that are available to us. So we're really excited to have the Homeland Security Department involved in our district and helping us make sure that our district is as safe as possibly we can be. And that's our safety committee's number one initiative right now, is to get this audit completed. And finally, we had a calendar committee meeting, another calendar committee meeting. We've met several times now, and we have parents. We have 4 parents. We have 4 teachers. And we have administrators that are serving on that particular committee. And we're continuing to make progress, and we should have hopefully recommendations about the 2021 calendar by the fall of 2019. So I just wanted to let you know that we're continuing to work and make good progress there. So thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Jeff. Next on the agenda is public comment, but seeing no members from the public present this evening, we will move right along into committee reports. First up will be Finance. Mr. Simmons.
Alrighty. We do have a Finance Committee meeting tomorrow, weather permitting. That's going to be a joint meeting with Facilities. We're going to be talking a little bit about the Elementary Education Task Force that is going to be accelerated. Next week, I believe, unless we're going to also be meeting with the Cumberland Town Finance Committee to sort of compare notes on various capital projects. So,
Great. Thanks so much. Policy. Is anyone here?
We have not met since our last board meeting, so we'll have an update on the 22nd.
Thank you kindly. Curriculum.
We held our first graduation policy stakeholder meeting this evening prior to the board meeting. We have an awesome group of people helping us rethink that. And we will be meeting again on January 22nd will be 2 other meetings before a recommendation to the policy committee.
Thank you, Tyler. Negotiations?
I believe there is a meeting next week with the negotiating committee that is going to be taking place.
For facilities, as Mike mentioned, there will be a joint meeting, weather permitting, of the Facilities and Finance Committee tomorrow morning to discuss space study, early childhood education recommendations, space needs of the district. And then also, as many of you may have seen in the forecaster, there were some at least concept site designs that were bantered around related to the relocation of the bus garage. Cumberland seeking to do some modification of their facility. North Yarmouth is seeking to expand theirs and would welcome us there. And just having some initial conversations about what that means. Nothing imminent, but just so all are aware. Environmental stewardship.
I don't have anything new to report, but we will be meeting next in February, on February 13th at 3 p.m.
Look forward to that. And student reports.
Hi. So recently we've moved our library pass system from paper to digital. So that's kind of exciting, saving the environment a little bit. I haven't experienced it. Have you tried it yet?
I have not. I'm studying all
No, that kind of started today, so we'll see. Yeah, we just got back from vacation. What else? We have exams, midterms next week, so we're getting all prepared for that. There's talk of a snow day tomorrow, perhaps. Yeah, so that's all I can update you on right now.
Sounds like pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Ms. Gallo?
I don't have too much to add. We're very excited to be in the new Performing Arts Center for sure.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the IB? Both of us take IB classes, but
I'm actually in the IB diploma program, so I've been enjoying it so far. I don't have too much to say. I haven't started. I'm very excited to take Theory of Knowledge, which starts second semester of your junior year. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, I support the program. So yeah.
Nice to hear the support. The, well, not the last item, but pretty close, is communications, and the board goes back to school. Tell us more, Jeff.
All right, so we've been doing this for a couple of years, and it used to be something that was done years and years ago. So we are planning to do that again, and I don't think the schedule has gone out yet, or we're about to send the schedule out to the board. But each school principal will be ready to host any board members that would like to. Would love to have all of you come to all of them, but I realize that your time is limited and you may only be able to come to one or two, or come to all four if you can. But we'll have different times for each of the schools over the next couple of months. So each of the four principals will be taking you on a tour of some aspects of their school. And I'm hoping that you'll be able to at least join one of them if you can. So we're really excited to offer that, and Fran Prentice will be sending that schedule out to the board. I think hopefully this week we'll be able to get that out to you.
Look forward to it. As someone who's had the opportunity to participate in the tours in the past, it's probably one of the coolest things we do. Sometimes sitting in here and looking at PowerPoints, not that there's anything wrong with them, you lose sight of the really cool stuff that's happening in the classroom.
Absolutely.
And those days put it all into perspective. There are no items for action, so hearing no objections, I would welcome a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Who was it, Tyler?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. There does not appear to be anyone against it. I'll open it to discussion briefly before moving quickly to vote. All in favor? Unanimous. Have a wonderful evening. 7:59.